Hello and welcome to Experts Live UK Community Voices. This is the series where we speak to many speakers and industry leaders from around the Microsoft community to find out how they got into the world of tech, what makes them tick and how their journey has evolved from how they started to where they are now. So whether you're just starting out on your career in tech or you're a seasoned professional, this series will take you through real people's real stories and lessons learned. So with that in mind, I'll introduce myself. I'm Bruce Cullen. I'm your host for today, along with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Geoff Ross. Hello, Geoff.
Hello, Bruce. Yes, fantastic to be here on this podcast. Hello, everyone. My name's Geoff, and I've been involved in Microsoft tech for longer than I can think about.
There we go. As have I, in many different guises. But I believe so has our guest, the very one and only Mr. Dean Ellerby. Welcome to the podcast, Dean.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, very good. So I believe you are a VP of Community and Product Strategy at Robopack. Let's start with, what does that mean? And go from there.
Very good question. So I am. I took that role a year ago, actually, and it wasn't really well defined at all because there was no role open. It was kind of a conversation I had with the team at Robopack. And it's really kind of working with the developers to figure out how we can make the product better, the Robopack product better, and interfacing with the community. So we get a lot of feedback from the community about what Robopack should do next and how we can improve and what people love about it. It's essentially having those conversations with people who are using the product or want to use the product, and then feeding that back into the dev team so we can actually make it. So yeah, I've recently released things like the roadmap tool that we have for Robopack, and also the feedback tool so people can actually go in and vote for features that they want to see in Robopack. So that's pretty much the role in a nutshell.
Very cool. Sounds similar to my world, product management. That's great.
Is that what I am?
Yeah. Product strategy, you're a that's not a bad thing. It's okay. You're part of a different community there as well. There we are.
I didn't want to be a product manager.
You're a product manager on steroids. It's okay.
Okay.
But I'm guessing when you started out on your career, you didn't immediately sort of land into that role into the world of product. It's very rare that people kind of do. So how did you get started? What's your kind of story and background?
I'll go right to the beginning. I'll keep it as short as possible, though. I actually finished university and didn't have a job. But in my time at university, I had a gap year where I went to a company to do some work. I went to do some customer support at a company called Jagex, who made a game called RuneScape, and many others, but RuneScape was their flagship product, which is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And I was doing customer support on night shift with loads of other students because they had sort of a team of customer support who, it's like 70 of us who just helped keep the community clean because it was a massive community, as you can imagine. So players could talk to each other. We needed to moderate that. So I was essentially a moderator for that game.
And cool game too.
Cool.
It was a very cool game.
It's interesting. There's a lot, the gaming industry does community very, very well. Maybe that's something we should dig into, Bruce, on a future episode.
Yeah, definitely. It's in gaming. It's part of the experience. It's part of the product itself, which is interesting in itself. Yeah, very cool. So what was next?
So from there, I kind of jumped into the IT team there. It was a very small IT team, but they had a lot of stuff to do, and they were very secure. They had two networks. They had a development network, which was completely offline, and what they call the commercial network, which had access to the internet. So there was a lot of work to do, even for a small 300-person company. And then, it was IT really, and I did everything from facilities management up to sort of installing a phone system, all that kind of stuff. They were doing some really crazy things with phones back then as well. Like they would call, when you like have an internal phone system where you would make a phone call to someone else's desk in the next room, for example. They were doing that using actual Cambridge numbers, so 01223 something,
right,
and being charged by BT to call the next desk, like just over there. they were actually making an outbound phone call, which came in, and I was like, surely this isn't how the industry works. And I kind of Googled it and said, I'd like some budget for a via phone system, please. Can I just buy one of those off eBay and just do that? So that was my first project in tech, was to install a phone system for that company and figure out how ISDN ordering works and all that kind of stuff. So that was an interesting project. And then SCCM really was the next thing. The entire System Center suite actually is what I implemented for that company because they wanted to move from Windows Vista to Windows 7.
There we go.
And so that was all
timeline wise.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and so we reused MDT for that actually for the first one, which is actually it's already been deprecated for a while, but MDT is just like this week been unavailable to download. So a huge loss for people who use MDT still, and even people who want to do the MD 102 exam, because it still tells you to use MDT in that exam. But I did SCCM and became an expert in SCCM, I think, from my standards, enough to move to a company. We parted ways for various reasons with that company, but I moved to be SCCM admin in a networking company in Cambridge.
It's interesting that both myself and Geoff have a history in the System Center suite of products, myself being SCOM or operations manager. It seems like it's partly because that's what was around at the time, but it was a good suite of products for what it did and a good way to get yourself into tech. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
And then I think I used SCCM all the way through while I was at that networking company. And then I became a consultant at BT, and I was there for about 8 years and implemented SCCM for customers and Intune for customers and that kind of thing. Yeah, that was
Tell me about the transition between being in a regular IT team where you're responsible for a single deployment of something, SCCM, to that transition to being a consultant. Because it's one I've never done and I'm really interested in.
It's weird because you get into a big project and then you kind of feel like you're part of a single team again. So you kind of have lots of different projects running and you have that feeling of being part of something and part of a team and part of a company. But then they don't really see you as part of the team or part of the company. So like you're kind of going out for like coffee and stuff with people, but then you're not really part of the team. You're going to be gone in a few months. So it's a very weird feeling and it can be quite lonely. But it's good because you get to learn a lot. You have to almost fake it until you make it. You know, if you don't know something, you have to know it the next week because you're going to be implementing it, and it's a weird situation.
I'm going to ask how you kind of handle that kind of suddenly you're just expected to know everything, right? Once you're a consultant, you're brought in as an expert. You know, we all know that experts don't know every single thing, but when you're dealing with a kind of customer, they just expect you just to know it and solve it and fix it. And that's
you're right. But then the sales team who is selling your time, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what I don't know. So it's very difficult for them to speak to a customer in a pre-sales call and figure out exactly whether we can do that thing that they've just asked for. And so they just say yes, don't they? They just hope.
Yeah.
And then it comes to the consultant to get on the ground and go, oh no, that is going to take a while.
Yeah, my experience of salespeople has been, in software very similar. Like, would you like to close this deal? Yes, I would. Yes, of course. Can we deliver? Yeah, sure, of course we can. Yes.
Has it got this feature? Well, it will have by the time you come to implement it, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes,
great.
Yes.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And I think that must happen in all consultancies. I don't think that's unique to me in that company. I think it is just how it has to work. And so from then, I've always kind of been skeptical of hiring consultants because I kind of knew exactly how it worked.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah,
on the other side.
Did you have that sort of imposter syndrome when you kind of particularly when you first got into that role, where you sort of felt like
terrified?
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I was absolutely terrified. Especially when you get the first project and you land there. I was actually working for a local government for like 3 or 4 of those years. So I was actually in an office in London, which was great because it was actually 3 boroughs of London that I was working for. So I could just walk between the 3 boroughs or cycle between the 3 boroughs and go to a different office and see people there. So I made quite a lot of friends in that role. and that was good. So I think it was, as I say, it was a lonely role of consultant because you kind of don't have any actual colleagues that you see every day because everyone's on different projects. But then, yeah, you get to see a lot of different people and learn a lot of different things. So it's bittersweet.
Imagine. How did you manage that whole imposter syndrome thing? Because I'm sure we've all felt it in our careers at various times, and it's not nice. It's not easy to handle. How did you manage that back in the day?
I don't think I recognized it back in the day as imposter syndrome, but also when you have that kind of conversation with a customer and you know you sat trying to figure out a problem and around a table with all the customer team and all of your team, and you look at the problem and realize, okay, it is actually on me to fix this because I'm meant to be the person who knows this technology inside and out. That's when you kind of think, am I the right person to be sat in this room being that person? So I guess that's imposter syndrome, maybe, but yeah, it is, isn't it? And so yeah, I don't know how I managed it, how I got through it. Really, I mean, it's not that different to how everything works these days. You know, all this new stuff that's coming out, you have to kind of learn it, and I guess I still have imposter syndrome now and again.
I
I
think
don't know.
we all do, to be honest, and because there's always something new. You know, AI being the most apt example of something new that's completely changing the industry. There's always something new. It doesn't matter which piece of flavor of AI. There's always another tool, isn't there? And there's always an element of that. I appreciate your honesty. So talk me through what happened afterwards. Where did you go afterwards?
After
After
consultancy.
BT, yeah.
I went to a managed SOC company, a security operations center company, and worked there for a while. Not actually that long. Oh no! Before that, I went to CDW. I was at CDW for a good 8 months, and then jumped over to an internal role at the managed stock, which went pretty well. They were based in Switzerland. I got a few trips out of that. That was good. We went to Ignite and then really enjoyed that. Yeah, then from there, actually was also starting my own business at the same time. Sort of in the evenings, I was just doing small bits of consultancy for local companies, actually a local electricians. I happen to know the owner. He was paying far too much for licensing and support, so I kind of said I'll take it on and do that. So I became a licensing reseller for Microsoft and started my own business that way, and that kind of grew. In no small part due to a couple of guys who left that managed SOC company and started their own business and asked me to come along and help them out and be part of their team, and they really sort of spurred me forward with cash. Really, that was really what I needed. A big contract,
A good motivator.
yeah, a big contract coming into that company rather than coming into me as a personal standard employee. So I got a bit of cash in the business, which was helpful, so I could do various things. Yeah, that was pretty much next, and then I left that company and joined Robopack. So pretty much now we're up to exactly where we are now.
There you go. There you go. Did you find there's any sort of overlap? Because I imagine stepping back from running your own business, it's got to be difficult because you've invested quite a lot of yourself in this thing, getting it off the ground. How did that go? How was that for you?
So I haven't stopped running my own business. So I'm a contractor for Robopack. So I'm part of the team. A lot of people in Robopack are mainly because we don't have an operation in the UK, so they can't hire me directly, and so they could use an umbrella company and make me an employee that way. But it's much easier and better for me if I just invoice them as a third party. And there's certain IR35 rules and stuff you have to be aware of and work around. But Robopack isn't my only customer. I've got other customers that I work for and that I do stuff with. But primarily, my role at Robopack takes up most of my time, but it might not be permanent. Everyone moves on, so I'm still running my own business. Which so yeah, that's definitely an overlap. The other side of my business from Robopack is YouTube. really. So that actually is a business for me.
So talk me through that as a business. So it makes you money directly, YouTube.
Yes. Yeah. Not an awful lot. Ad revenue.
Revenue. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Every time someone signs up or watches a video, I get a very small amount of money.
I've always been interested in how that works. Was that an intentional thing, or was that a nice side benefit of producing content?
So I think being monetized when I was monetized a few years ago was like a target I was going for, because you have to get 1,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers, which was a big target back in the day. So I think that was what I was kind of aiming for, being monetized there. But the whole point of starting YouTube was actually back in the BT days, because the team at BT, the management team at BT, they had experts, right? We were meant to be the experts in that company on those particular products that we were meant to be implementing. We were the consultancy team. And so it's kind of how can you be promoted from expert in this product? You can't learn it more. And so what they said was you need to be an expert externally as well if you want to be promoted. So that was me and a chap called John Lunn, who also worked alongside me, started to create YouTube content. He now works at Microsoft after becoming MVP, and I became MVP primarily for making YouTube content about Microsoft stuff.
I was going to ask you about that. Was that like an intentional thing, becoming an MVP, or was that sort of, I've already got the content, Microsoft have recognized me? How does that whole thing work? As spoken to someone who's not an MVP.
There's also a question about the monetization as well. Like, is it sort of because the content's there, then that happens, or like same question really? But
so I kind of became MVP not by accident, but it was kind of you have to intentionally want to be MVP in order to be MVP, because you have to apply, right? So then you have to prove whether you've done a certain amount of content and regularity and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of rules about how you can be eligible for MVP. And so you had to meet those. It happened to be that I already met them because I'd been producing content on YouTube and blogs for a while. It's only a year you need to be producing regular content for, so every month you need to have a few bits of content being released. And I happened to be doing that already on the side of working for BT back then. I don't think I think I'd already moved job before I actually got MVP, but that was why I started. And then, the ad revenue thing, it's a very small amount of money, and I'm not really doing YouTube for profit. So that kind of fits in with the MVP rules of not using. There's a rule where you can't make money off MVP or something like that. I can't remember exactly the rule, but it's on the MVP website. Where you can't be MVP for doing your job. That wouldn't make any sense. It has to be for the community. And I'm creating videos that people don't need to pay for. I happen to get ad revenue from people watching adverts, but it's not quite the same. In the same way, if someone produces a book and people have to buy a book, it's not quite the same as doing your job. And then the ad revenue thing is, I actually only get around £200 a month, which is quite good, really, for not doing any extra work.
That's great. Sign me up.
That's for around 12,000, 13,000 subscribers, and a lot of watch hours. People watch the content quite a lot at the moment, which is good. It doesn't replace your salary by any means, but it will. It certainly means you can get a couple of cups of coffee and stuff.
Before I move us on, Geoff, anything else you wanted to ask before I take us down a different path?
No, I think I've got some questions also down that other path. So let's go down it.
All right, okay.
Let's know the path. That is terrifying.
I know Bruce pretty well by now.
You know me pretty well, but I don't know if I know the path. That's the worrying thing. But there we go. So what I was going to ask you is, looking back over your career, you've done a whole bunch of different things. I'm sure there were certain moments where you had those sort of fork in the road moments where it was this or that, and sort of pivotal key turning points in your career. Are there any you can think of that come to mind? You think, that was a real moment in my career where I had to choose something and it was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I've already covered it, but the starting my own business thing was a huge thing, I think. So having that conversation with the managing director of the electrical company, I said, look, I don't have a company. I can't like take on your support. I can't do that. I have a full-time job. And he said, but I really want you to do it because you're local, you're nice. I want you to do this for me. So I was like, okay, well, I'll start a company. That's fine. No worries. I'll make a little company and I'll do that, and I'll invoice you every month to make sure that I'm there whenever your computers don't work. And that was fine because it was very easy for me to register a company and learn how all that works. And doing the books on a company that's very small and not making any money is very easy. It was only then when we had the licensing conversation with his existing partner, and they were charging far too much, and he was buying the wrong licenses and not using all the features. And I was like, well, we should fix that. So I will sell you some licenses. So I became a licensing reseller, which was, again, not a lot of work. But then when you start selling licenses, you're a reseller. So I was buying licenses. Maybe you say a business premium license was 20 quid. I would buy a license for £20, and then I would sell it to them. But I'd buy it from Microsoft with VAT. So I'd be paying more than, and then because I wasn't VAT registered, I would have to sell it to them without VAT.
So you make a loss on every sale,
Yeah.
potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a good deal.
So it didn't work out very well at all. So then I had to become VAT registered and figure out how all that worked. And so it just kind of spiraled into a very big thing. And suddenly I've got a limited VAT registered company and I have one customer. And it's like, okay, this happened. So that was the turning point, I think, where I ended up having a business that really could be used as my own. And it was completely accidental. That wasn't a plan. It was just, I accidentally found myself having requirements for all those things. But yeah, I'd say that was a turning point.
What about the technology, Dean? From what you said, am I right to kind of interpret that you sort of fell a bit into SCCM and then obviously into Intune? It wasn't ever a sort of conscious decision. You had a role that needed that and you got those skills and went from there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got budget approval to deploy SCCM as part of the System Center suite back in Jagex. And that was like an experiment, really. We got a trial. I think it was like a 60-day trial you could do. And I got a trial, and it was very much like MDT from an operating system deployment perspective, which I'd
Even
spent
looked
years.
like it, didn't it? A lot of sort of the UI.
Yeah, with the task sequences and stuff. And I'd spent years learning MDT, so it was very easy to fall into SCCM. But it was an absolutely massive tool, especially when it was back in the time when Microsoft were calling it the System Center Suite, along with SCOM and System Center Service Manager and VMM.
DPM.
Orchestrator. Yeah, and so as a very junior tech, I thought I'll just implement the entire System Center Suite. That'll be easy. So I built a Hyper-V host and installed all those things, and was trying to run just myself. Was trying to run all of that, running all the virtual machines through VMM, all of the stuff through Orchestrator. It was entirely overkill for such a small company, but I learned an awful lot because you bought the suite and you had access to all the tools. So it didn't cost you any more to use the rest of the suite, and it kind of felt like you should be using it. So having no idea how any of it worked, I jumped into that. So yeah, I think you're right. I fell into using SCCM because it took up all my time after I'd started to use it.
As I can imagine, if you implemented the entire suite, there's a lot to that suite. I imagine that's exactly what Microsoft have wanted.
Yeah. Each
Although
product's pretty deep, so.
But the tools weren't like homogenous. They weren't meant to be used together. Completely separate tools. They just happened to be called System Center. That was the only link. It was a licensing thing.
Yeah. System Center nerds like myself and Bruce know that SCOM and Service Manager are the same product.
Yes, they are
under the scenes. But everything else.
They really are.
Thought of that.
The way in which
they really are. There's actually some interesting quirks around that. Like some of the logs in Service Manager is called Operations Manager log because they never bothered to rename it.
how you extend them both is with management packs. It's the same approach.
Yeah, I
System
dropped
Center.
Service Manager very, very quickly. It was again far too overkill. We were using a email based ticketing system back then as well, so it wasn't at all useful. But yeah, that was interesting.
You found a specialism in the form of SCCM originally, and you know, it sounds like because it was a needs must, you had a job to do, and it felt sort of fit the bill, so to speak. Did you have any concerns around like picking a wrong specialism, just by any sort of concerns around there?
I not really. I don't think I picked it because it was kind of my job, and then the next kind of reason I would use SCCM is because it was on my CV as one of my key skills, and I knew how to use it, and I went into a role that needed someone who could deploy SCCM, and then after that it was consultancy. So I don't think I picked it, but as Geoff said, I just landed on it and then became good at it, good at it enough to be able to convince someone that I could do it for a living.
Makes sense, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it? Very good.
Yeah, just being convincing.
Just being convincing. So you've told us a fair old bit around your career. You've told us about YouTube. You've told us about the MVP program. And there's a nice sort of intersection between those things and community. So how does sort of community happen for you, Microsoft community? So I know obviously you are the organizer behind Workplace Ninjas UK. You're involved in Experts Live UK as well. How did that happen? Was that sort of an accidental thing, or was that, I can't imagine that would be an accidental thing, but how did that come to be?
No, I like to travel. I like to visit different countries and see different people. I've got a lot of acquaintances in different countries because of the traveling that I've done. And my first conference that I attended was Ignite. No, it wasn't. It was not called Ignite back then. MMS. The Microsoft Management Summit, I think it was.
Yes.
The actual MMS back in 2010. So that was my first one. I was working for the networking company, and I convinced them to let me go to that in the States. So it was in Vegas, and I went to Vegas on my own for the first time ever in the US.
That's cool.
And it was incredible because there was so many people in that. I met someone in a bar, and I think it was Kim Oppelfens walked in, and Rod Trent. They are currently kings of what they know in Intune and security, and the people who saw them walk in obviously knew who they were, and they were worshipping them. They pointed them out and said, "Hey, that's Kim, and you should go and talk to him," and stuff. They really liked what they were talking about and knew they were experts. And I had never seen any MVP or heard of the MVP program or done any stuff in the community at all. I was just an attendee for the first time at that thing, which is now Ignite. And that's the first time where I was like, okay, there's something in the community here, and I just didn't recognize it. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I didn't go to any more conferences actually after that. I kept going to the Ignite thing until COVID happened, but I wasn't really involved in real free community work at all, other than doing my YouTube stuff. And then it was I think it was the Workplace Ninjas Summit that I went to first, and went there and really enjoyed that. It was a fantastic event, still is a fantastic event. Went there a couple of times, and then they suggested that there should be country versions of it, so smaller versions in each country. And so I asked if I could run that along with a few other people. So that's how that started.
That's fun. It's always good when you get asked to do something. It's a good accolade of your ability to do so. It's really cool.
No, I wasn't asked.
I thought you just said asked.
Right, Bruce,
You asked.
when you get asked to do something. It's
No,
just a shame
Merc-
that didn't happen in this case.
It's always nice, but it didn't happen. No, Merkel stood in front of
Fair
the
enough.
entire crowd and said, "You should, if you want to run one of these events in your country, let us know." And I went up to him and said, "I want to do that."
Very cool.
It's always
Very
nice
cool.
when you get allowed to do
Yes.
something.
That is also true and is also nice. So is
It
there a
is.
particular sort of moment from your time in the community that kind of stands out, a particular talk or event or conversation that really stands out to you within your journey from a community perspective?
So I actually had never spoken at any event at all until I went to it's only a few years ago, actually. And it was the Miami Beach edition of MMS. So I think that was 3 or 4 years ago. And that was the first time I'd spoken on stage in front of anybody, which was completely terrifying. I had 3 sessions, and they're 2 hours long. And the co-speakers that you're speaking with are incredible MVPs already, and so that was very imposter syndrome-y, I think, because that was a terrifying thing to do. So I think that started my sort of appetite to keep going and keep learning and keep speaking. So that was, I think that was well before I started Workplace Ninjas UK, and then yeah.
Knocking on doors and having them open sometimes is a good way forward. So when it came to that speaking, how did you decide what to speak about?
Well, that's very simple because you have to submit sessions and you have to submit more than one, because you at least need to do 2 or 3. In certainly in MMS, they expect you to do 2 or 3. But you also need to have a session. You also need to have a lot of content to talk about. So it had to be something that I knew about. So I submitted one around Mac OS management because that was something I'd been doing recently for a customer, and also for Defender for Endpoint because I was working in the managed SOC company doing that. So I was doing a lot of Defender for Endpoint stuff, and then I can't remember the other one, but I was also able to create content very quickly about that. So you have to be able to talk about it for at least 2 hours and be knowledgeable about it. So it's not really free choice when it comes to session submission. You do have to be able to convince the organizers that you are able to talk eloquently about that topic for 2 hours at least and
How do you
create
go
content.
from, I'm an expert in this technology. I know how to solve problems, I know how to deploy it, I know how to use it, to here's a 2 hour kind of session with a journey, with a learning objective, all that. Like,
That is the basis for my YouTube channel. So for me, that was easy to do because I started the YouTube channel wanting to learn some more products, bits of Intune that I hadn't looked at. And so the first video I did, I can't remember exactly what it was about, but it was me pretty much learning the product and learning new bits of Intune that I hadn't looked at. May have been Windows Hello for Business. And I turned the camera on, I turned the screen share on and just talk and try, and it took ages to edit it, the first one, because I was waffling and not really making any sense at all. But that's the basis, and that's why I think I have the audience that I have like the fact that I'm just learning the same as them. The being able to explain how something works, I kind of, towards the end of each of the video, I've learned some things. I want to explain what I now know and kind of explain that. So I'd already been doing that kind of explaining thing for a while. And then also as a consultant, you do have to be able to convince people that you know what you're talking about. So I've been doing presentations to customers for a while. So it wasn't too much of a jump for me to jump on stage and do a sales presentation, essentially.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That's really interesting. We're starting to get to the end of time now. So before we run out of time, one thing I really want to ask you is, what lesson would you wish you'd known earlier in your career? Would you pass on to past Dean?
Well, I would have started YouTube sooner, and I think I would have started my own business sooner if I could give that advice to me. Because I started my business pretty late in life, really. I started YouTube pretty late in life, but I think I could have done that sooner. I could have started writing blogs sooner. I could have done community stuff a lot sooner. because I just did that 9 to 5 thing for the majority of my career until recently, and I think that for me wasn't as fulfilling as what I have now, where I can pretty much do whatever I like, and just try and show different bits of Microsoft stuff to the community. I have my full autonomy on what I do with my day, which is vastly different to how it was working back then. And then there's a couple of MVPs who are very, very young. I won't name them, but I absolutely envy them for starting at like the age of 17,
Yes.
18. It is
Yes.
ridiculous, because they have got to the stage that I'm at now with their presence online and that kind of thing, and they are half my age. So yeah, I would have loved to have started sooner.
Good advice, especially for anyone thinking of getting into it. Geoff, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add? Any other question you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to ask Dean how he kind of views the community as a whole. You've got all these different things that you're involved in. We talked about kind of what's your overall experience of Microsoft community? How would you sort of describe it and your involvement with it, sort of overall?
I think I have a different perspective now that I'm sort of behind the MVP curtain, because I see how it is kind of a curtain, but when you get to the other side of the curtain, you realize, okay, it's pretty much the same behind here, but there's a lot more people talking in WhatsApp groups. It's kind of it's a very, very big community. Like the events that you can go to have Experts Live Netherlands, for example, have 3,000 people or so attending that. There's so many people using Microsoft in the world, so many people Googling, how do I do this? And finding content, blogs and that kind of thing, and using ChatGPT to figure out how to do something. And that looks at Google, looks at blogs, looks at YouTube videos. So the community is absolutely vast. And it is a lovely community. There's hardly any kind of fighting or bitchiness around in the Microsoft community that I'm involved in at all. And it's a very, what's the word? Fulfilling, I think, to speak with these people and get to know them and talk to them every day. So yeah, I really enjoy the Microsoft community stuff that we do.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us today. That brings us to the end of this episode of Experts Live UK Community Voices. But before we wrap up, we obviously don't just do this podcast. Experts Live UK also exists for other things as well. Most importantly, we are running a full-scale 2-day conference on the 11th and 12th of June. Geoff, before I waffle on, is there anything you'd like to say about the full conference?
Just how excited we are to be putting this together. Coming from last year with our one-day event, we're keen to go bigger and better with more sessions, more speakers, more days, more fun, more dancing.
More dancing, that's key.
And yeah, and we're just really excited to kind of just to see you all there. Yeah, tickets are on sale, I think.
I think they will be by the time this goes out.
Yeah,
and they are, I mean, if I do say so myself, they are a bargain at a mere £219 early bird pricing. So do go and check those out. And I think that is basically us coming to a close. So a huge thank you, Dean. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for letting us probe you on your career, your sharing your stories, your insights and experience with us all. But this isn't it. We have another episode hot on the back of this one, where we'll be joined by Reshmi Aklu. And we'll be talking to her about her transition away from software development into the Microsoft community. She's a 2-times MVP, so do not miss that one. And of course, if you have any questions for her, please do get them into myself or Geoff or at Experts Live UK on LinkedIn. And I'll be randomly picking from the questions received. So be creative and have a think about how that journey looks and what might be interesting to ask. And of course, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please do follow it and share it with your friends and family, stray pets, anything counts as far as subscribers go at this early stage. And of course, follow us at Experts Live UK for more Experts Live UK community voices. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.